Hello. Hey, and welcome to another stream. Let me get my mic set up here. Let me lower down my music as well. I hope this is loud enough. I hope the music you hear is not too loud, and you can hear myself talking over you, right? And yeah, we can get this. Hey, Sasha. Hey, we can get this. We can get this stream started slowly. So, sip of coffee. Welcome to. I actually shift 1 hour later on, so it's 5 p.m. here in Central Europe. I switched it so I did get some basically asks from people from the Pacific time zone to kind of move it up a bit, so they don't have to get up as early. So yeah. To this stream, or this, what are we going to be talking about here today, or what are we going to try to work with is we're going to work with something called an AWS toolkit, and we're going to try to debug some code, do some debugging on our Java applications, and especially debugging in containers. Now, you might see here that I have IntelliJ open here, and I have some sample application running. And basically what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be playing around with Database Toolkit. We're going to be playing around with the new beta feature called Cloud Debugging. And yeah, we're going to see how it goes. Now, I have been spending some time setting this up just so I don't have to so you don't have to look at me while I Google all this stuff. But in general, it should hopefully work. Yeah, famous last words. So, where do we start? Let me have a look at my notes here. So, yeah, let's start with the AWS toolkit. So, what is the toolkit? We have a bunch of toolkits, right? But when I say toolkits, basically these are some plugins, some extras for specific IDEs. So for some specific integrated development environments. And today I'm going to be talking about a specific one for IntelliJ. Now, the one for IntelliJ is actually an open source plugin that actually makes it kind of easy for you to both create and deploy and even debug Java and Python applications to AWS, right? So it's currently in beta. The debugging aspect of it is currently in beta. So some things may work good, some things may work not as good. So yeah, as we go along, it should get better and better. But in essence, it should provide you with a much more smoother experience when you want to debug something, right? So we basically have a toolkit version for all the JetBrains, or at least most of the JetBrains IDEs. So IntelliJ, PyCharm, WebStorm, and Rider. And all of these toolkits are open source. So you can freely kind of work with them and then maybe make some changes to them as well. So how do we get started, right? Or what? First of all, what is the goal of today is to debug some code, and how do we get started with that code debugging? In essence, what this is going to enable us is to debug code directly on the application running in an ECS container. And it's running on our Elastic Container Service, basically on Fargate. So it's a fully serverless container service, so there's no instances there. And it gives us this ability to debug the code, not locally, but directly on there, which gives us a lot of benefits. Before I kick that off, I want to just show you what I have running currently. So right now, that's the end result, but let's open up this thing. So I have an application that runs on ECS, and it's actually made of a single service that runs a single task, and that task is just a simple container that runs the Java application, and the application itself is this, right? It's a little mythical misfits application. So this is application available on our, what is it called? The modern application workshop. So it's an open workshop which you can kind of do yourself. It's available on GitHub and also on our documentation, where you can kind of go on and build this application and all the bells and whistles that go around it. So I basically used that to build this small application because it was written in Java, and kind of gave me all the things I want to experiment with cloud debugging on it. So this is a small application that shows these couple of mythical misfits, little mythical creatures here, and the goal of the idea of this application is that I can choose on which spectrum of good and evil it is, or how lawful and chaotic this thing is. So if I would like to show all the chaotic creatures, it doesn't work, right? So there's a problem here, and this is a problem. It says could not retrieve misfits list. So this is the web console here as well for Chrome. So it could not retrieve misfits list. That is a problem, right? So can I zoom this in as well? I can. Awesome. So how do we handle that? So what do we do from now? How would I go and troubleshoot my application? So if I would go back to my IntelliJ thing, I see my application is here. What this application in essence does, it's a static front-end application that pulls things from an API, and that API is actually served by this container. And what it does, if you do this, it will just give you a JSON output of all the creatures, or depending on what you do, depending on the filter, it takes all these creatures from there, and the creatures actually exist in DynamoDB. So I have a small DynamoDB table with a bunch of creatures with all the information about them, and they're basically standing on good, evil, or law and chaos, and likes, blah blah blah. So super simple thing. Nothing too special. It has a bunch of moving parts, so just we can make this more interesting. But somewhere along the line, something broke, right? Something doesn't work. Me trying this application out, I could not retrieve misfits list. And basically, if I would check this out, it would show me just the misfits which are lawful, or which are chaotic, right? But it doesn't work. Anyone I choose, I will get the same 500, and I would get that kind of a problem. So how do we approach this, right? So we could work here and maybe build our application locally and do something like that. But let's actually try to. Can I zoom in on this? How does this work in? How does this work on IntelliJ? The zoom in text size. This doesn't seem to be working properly. No. Actually, you can do this. Alt Command and 8. I can do some code here. Awesome. So yeah, that's my application. Again, I have not created this application by no means. It's something that I've kind of stolen from one of our examples. But in essence, it should do that. And the toolkit now here allows us to do something with it, right? So we can here, thanks to the AWS toolkit, which is present here on the left-hand side, you should see something called AWS Explorer. So that's the part of the toolkit. And that thing actually shows us a bunch of things. It shows us, CloudFormation stacks within this region. It shows us ECS cluster within this region, within this account, Lambda functions, S3 buckets, and event bus schemas as well. So we can kind of directly access those things and interact with them to an extent. What we want to do right now, because we have our container or our application, our service running on containers, we want to interact with those containers. We want to we want to run debugging directly on them, right? Instead of just connecting to a container in some magical, whimsical way, let's do it through IntelliJ. So one of the things that we can do here is go to ECS. It shows us all our cluster, and this is the cluster that actually runs my service right now. What I can do here is I can just right-click on it and say Enable Cloud Debugging. What this will do is I'll actually show this to you as we go along, because there's going to be a moment where we have to wait a bit because it's provisioning. But once this happens, it goes here and asks me, hey, enable Cloud Debugging. Make sure to select a role that will help you do this. Now, it's important to select a role that has maybe some additional permissions that you would usually use. It has to be an ECS task role, absolutely, but it also has to have permissions for SSM, because we're going to be using Systems Manager, or SSM, to do some magic here, right? So I'm going to be clicking OK. Very important. do not use cloud debugging in production. Make sure to just use it in your testing environments. I think this speaks for itself, but take care that you do this in this way. Do not run. Make sure that this service is not a production service. You have to basically confirm that the Mythical Misfit service is not a production service, and yes, you wish to continue. Click OK. And now, let me zoom out. You can see here in the lower corner, lower portion of my screen, you can see something happening, right? There's a bunch of things happening right now. Basically what happened here, the AWS Toolkit made a bunch of API calls towards, it made a bunch of API calls towards AWS. And in essence, let's actually go back to the AWS console. What happened right now, if I go to ECS and I go to services, one of the things that happens here is that the desired count, or the desired number of tasks, let me move my face, the desired number of tasks here on this service has gone down. So the desired task is just one. So what we're doing, we're removing the currently running production task, right? And if we have a look at our load balancer, so again, this is sitting behind the load balancer as well. There's a target group and all the stuff we need to know. One of the things that's happening here on our load balancer is that a listener is currently this. It's called Mythical Misfits. So this is our quote-unquote production listener. And this in itself will, once it loads, come on, internet, do not fail me now. Yes, so, all right, come on. Okay, good. So this target group is our production group. Now, what IntelliJ will do, or the Cloud Debugger will do, it will replace the target group with a new target group that contains a new service or a new set of tasks. And those tasks are specific tasks or specific containers that have cloud debugging enabled on them. So basically think of it as a copy of your current running task, basically current task definition and image and all that stuff. It just has a small sidecar container connected to it that enables us to do debugging. Just have to have a look at my stream thing here, just so I'm not losing any packages. I think it looks okay, right? Yeah. All right. So while this is happening, let's go to the target groups. You will see targets here. There's the current one which existing, the production one, and it's currently draining. So it takes a moment or so for it to go away. Let's just make it faster and just kill it here. I can just do stop. Yeah, I want to kill it. Hopefully this doesn't break what I want to achieve. Now you can see a new service shows up here, the Cloud Debug service. This is the special service that basically will launch a new task, and that task will contain this debugging container, or this debugging enabled container for us. If I refresh the load balancer right now, if I click on it again, listener, we have a new listener, or a new new target group. We're forwarding to the Cloud Debug target group. So this is a new target group that will contain new listeners here. So that will just take a moment or so while all this provisions. And while that is happening, you can see here in the bottom that the AWS Toolkit is constantly checking in on ECS, checking if any of this thing is basically if anything has changed, have we provisioned, can we start the debugging actually. So command mouse wheel. Oh, there you go. Command mouse wheel. There you go. So the thing is, I can change this size of the code, but I cannot change anything else on IntelliJ. There you go. So this task is still pending, so it has not been provisioned yet. Just have a look at here. Yeah, so What? No, back. I'm looking forward to the redesign of this entire page. I'm not sure when it's coming, but I hope soon. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. Let's have a look. Still no targets registered here, so we're still waiting for these tasks to basically register properly on the load balancer. So the task currently is set to running, which is good. And going back here, we should have, yes, awesome. We should have now a task here showing up as initial. So we actually have to wait a bit for it to pass its health check and show up there. But one of the things we can see here now is that there has something has happened. So if I zoom in a bit, we can see that the successfully enabled debugging on ECS service name, mystical methods, blah, 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 blah. So that's pretty cool, right? And if we go here on the left-hand side, we can see that under this cluster, there is now a little bug icon next to our, well, the new service enabled, the debugging service is now enabled on this case. So that's pretty cool. I just want to give it a wait until I have this set to running. Now I will try to open up this application like that. Let me see if this works. Now, the confirmation of this working is just, it's going to be popping up these monsters. It takes a moment or so because we're launching it for the first time. So the API might not be reacting immediately because it's still not serving traffic through the load balancer. Yeah, we're still on a waiting list here. You can see that on network, I believe. Yeah, it's, nothing is happening yet. Cool. Going back. This stream includes a lot of wait time, but hey, we get to try some new things out. And even this service is relatively new for me. I have not had a chance to play around with it too much, so it's also exploratory for me. And well, giving me a chance to deliver a stream on a topic I don't know a lot about or is relatively new to me makes it fun for me, as I can spend some time to actually learn new things. Going back to this thing. Come on, let's show me healthy. Here, refresh. Let's go to console. Yes. Okay. Cool. It works now, right? So it's actually up and running. So we got some information back here, but if we look at this thing, it uses still the broken code. So we have basically just copied our broken application to a debug version of the same application. So what are we going to do here right now is that I know that on this page, I need to put a breakpoint here, right? If I put a breakpoint here, then we can do some debugging on this thing. So let me just move it up a little like that, because we don't have to look at the code too much. Can I increase? Oh, I can increase the size. Awesome. Cool. Let me move my mug as well. So what now we're gonna do is we're gonna just run debug, right? So we're gonna just run the debug part of it. What this right now does, it basically executes the debugging part. It executes this application, everything that it needs to kind of, well, work with this, right? Cool. So if I have a look at here, it's connected, and I can see that there is some debugging, and you can see the console running here. So it's running kind of a local version of my Spring Boot application. When I say local, it's actually running on that container, but we kind of go through all of this to that container. Once this starts, let's give it a moment. It's, after all, a Java application, right? So it takes a moment or so. I believe this is written with Amazon Corretto in mind, so should be pretty good. The container itself is not too big. Actually increase my window size so I can see it better. Cool. Awesome. The initialization has been completed. So now what we have to do here is we have to basically just go here, select one of these things, and hopefully now something should happen, right? Or refresh it. Come on. Show me that it works. Maybe it's just eventual consistency because we're talking about containers here, and maybe it's still not healthy. It is. Okay. But come on, show me something. It's currently not able to talk to this endpoint. Oh, okay. Awesome. Cool. So it basically, as soon as it reached that breakpoint, it's flipped me back automatically to IntelliJ, right? So we can start the proper debugging process here. So we have the full stack here. We can do all the standard debugging stuff like, step through, right? Step over and all of those things. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to actually step over a bunch of things, right? So we're going to click step over. So it takes basically the next, goes down in this code and does a lot of things. Okay, so we have a few things here. Can we query what value do we have here? Is it set? It's set to law chaos. That's fine. That seems like okay. Let's move on. Click on step over. It's gonna go make the DynamoDB query. So it's going into the DynamoDB query expression. Cool. Going further, we can see the filter is lawful and the value is law chaos. Okay. Moving forward, filter lawful chaos. That's fine. Expression. That's okay. We're going forward, stepping a bit more. Let's see. It's making a DynamoDB query expression. Awesome. Cool. There we go. Let's have a look. This seems all okay. Let's move on. Okay, we have an exception here. Target exception. There's a DynamoDB exception. There's an error message here saying the table does not have a specified index called lawful index. So let's have a look at DynamoDB. Let's see what kind of indexes does this thing have. There's law chaos, there's good evil, there's no lawful index. So I must have messed something up when it comes to lawful index. Where does it get the lawful index from, right? So where can we find that? Lawful, okay. Law chaos is lawful. So one of the things that I can find here is that it seems, well, I know what the error is because I built this application, but the error here is that in this little other controller, what I've basically done is I've flipped these values, right? Filter and value are flipped. If you can see here, the filter should come first, the value should come second. But again, I was able to have a look at the actual DynamoDB exceptions, what the actual problem was here, the validation, and all of this while it's still running on the cloud. So it was a pretty neat thing. Now, if I want to make a change here, so filter and then value and save and click debug, stop and rerun. So I will stop and rerun my debug with the current things. So it will actually make the changes that it needs right now. The great thing about this is it doesn't pull my code through the entire code pipeline or in my entire basically code delivery pipeline. It does it all through the toolkit, and that toolkit basically, you know, has a local version of itself running on a sidecar in the container, so all the code changes can be automatic through just me saving and debugging it again. So it's much faster for debugging. I know that I talked to endlessly about how can you do things with code pipelines, how that's a great thing, but sometimes if you work in a development environment, debugging a piece of code just like this could prove to be much more insightful and much more faster when it comes to just making quick and dirty changes. So this seems like it's running. Let me just go back to my this thing and refresh and let it load at one point. Would this work again? Well, we don't know. We're still waiting for the application to be running, right? The debugger is not running at not right now. Come on, load up. As you can see, a lot of waiting. That error in the console, that's nothing to do with this. It's just some error with the application. It's missing a thumbnail or something like thumbnail URI, but it's not the actual problem with this application. So, but this should be running right now, I think. Yes. Okay. Cool. So the application is available right now. So let's see, have we fixed our problem? If I click on lawful, oh, I have still enabled the. Okay, I still have debugging enabled, so let's continue on. Let's step through this. Go on, go on, go on. So the DynamoDB stuff, I think we should not get an exception right now if we continue on. Invocation, target exception, collecting data. The table does not have a lawful index. Did I break it again? So invoke handler method. Okay, so there is still that dispatch exception. Have I not made this change with it? If I stop my execution, stop all, let me attempt this again. Trial and error, right? But there's a log here that we can see. Yeah, DynamoDB problem as well. Validation requests. Table does not have a specified and lawful index. Okay. The debugger has stopped. If we refresh this, all right, let's leave it as such. Let's actually remove this thing and just run debugging in general. Let's run this application. Oh, by the way, one thing I need to mention if you use Cloud Debug, if you choose a wrong instance profile, wrong service or ECS task for enabling Cloud Debugging, it's a problem to get back from that. I've done that. I chose a wrong, basically a wrong role I should use, or wrong policy, and it failed, right? It failed to launch because of that. And I could not go back. It was so difficult to go back because of the fact that for some reason there was some issue with with the task definitions being created by some other user, that user which I used, with the wrong user which I used, and now it could not recover. So basically, my only option was to completely terminate the entire cluster and the entire service and all that stuff and recreate it again, and now it works. So I have no idea how that happened and why that happened, but yeah, it wasn't the best of things. Okay, cool. Let me have a look. If I do neutral, does that work? It doesn't work. I have not fixed it yet. Okay. No, couldn't retrieve misfit list. All right. Let's see. What did we say that we have broken? And this is the thing I've intentionally broken. So misfits, mythical. This should be the one that should go filter and then value. I kind of intentionally flipped it to be the other way around, because that is the broken way. So let me have a look at this. Actually, I have the original code here. So original application should be somewhere here, and then it's this one. No, the other one, the controller. Filter dot value, right? Is that okay? Is that okay? Filter value, yeah. So I must not be doing something correctly here, right? Neutral index, right? So yeah, something here I have broken, something doesn't work on my end, and well, let's try to debug it more. Stop all. Okay, let's go back to selecting this, enable debugging. That's what debugging is for, right? So what kind of indexes do we need actually? So looking at our DynamoDB here, the index has to be law chaos or good evil, right? So it cannot be law neutral, or so somehow how we form these indexes are different, right? So looking at our controller here, the filter and the value. Yeah, exactly. So this is the proper way around, because the filter in this case would be something along the line of lawful chaotic, and the value would be neutral, right? So okay, I have a problem with the debugging thing. Retrieving execution, failed to retrieve. Did I say this tool is in beta? Let's try it again. Retrieving execution role. Okay, move my face. What did happen? Something execution role. No such element exception. To retrieve the execution role from the service. So it should basically pull the execution role from this service. I see no reason why it shouldn't work. Let's play the old game of restart IntelliJ. Let's run it again. Okay. So back to ECS, clusters, this thing. Cool. Let's try again. Debug. There you go. I guess restarting helps. So, okay. Oh no, I should have put in my thing on the. Oh, I did. Okay, good. Okay. I want to see what values do we pass it here. So. Okay, so we have reached that there. Let me just open up this thing again and refresh. See what happens. Okay, awesome. So choosing, in this case, let's choose evil. Well, bam. Okay, so filter good evil and value is good evil. Okay, this is the things we have. Why is the value good evil? Okay. Ah, yes, sorry, okay. Ah, see, it would be opposite. It needs to be opposite. So the filter is evil and the value is good evil. The filter is actually good evil. It's the little slider, and the value should be the good evil. So if I stop my debugging and I go here and this is okay, I have changed my piece of code here. That's fine. And if I go here again, debug, I'm wondering why it's not picking up my code change. It should pick up my code change. According to documentation, anything besides you making changes to the actual Docker image, so to make a change to a Docker file, all of that should be picked up straight from here. So that's one of the things that's interesting. But let's see. How does my stream look? It looks good. Okay, still running up. Mapping. Okay, so it has initialized. I'm going back to this thing again. Let's refresh and give it a second. Yeah. For some reason, I'm struggling with some internet at home. I'm not sure if it's my internet or is it something general, but I have been getting some very bad performance today. Yeah, this should work pretty okay. I mean, this is going straight from the internet to this side, so I don't see a reason why this should show any problem. So let's just give it a moment or so. Eventual consistency. So basically, what I see here, that these things should be properly set. Filter, value, okay. It gets the method from there, okay, that's okay now. Let's say good evil, and I say evil, right? Okay, it flips him back to this. Filter evil, value good evil. See, this is not okay. Why is it sending that one? Let's just go back here and let's actually look. Let's have a look what is happening here. So this is the value that it receives, right? So if I step into it or step over it, I see that the filter is still evil and the value is good evil. So basically what it would look here, because the filter is evil, the index name would be filter plus index. So it would be evil index, which doesn't exist. If we look at DynamoDB, that thing doesn't exist, right? So it needs to be good evil or law chaos, not evil. Okay. Let me go a bit more. Can I see what is the value? Yes, I see the filter is evil. See, this is not okay. This should not be evil. So, and the value should be evil, but not good evil. So currently, I have a problem here that my code changes are not being replicated to back to ECS, and this in itself should work. So I found out what the problem is. I know how to fix it, and apparently I fixed it here, right? So by changing this thing here, but it's not picking that thing up properly. Huh. So attribute value. Well, luckily I know some folks that work with AWS Toolkit, and I can ask them directly, and I will be sending my messages today, right? But again, I must stress this is still a tool in beta, so things like that might happen. But it was working before. You know what? I'll just make sure to double check with them. But yeah, so that has been a very quick, well, 40-minute look into Cloud Debugger. Now, Cloud Debugger is again available. It's currently in beta, so some things might be problematic. Oh yes, by the way, this is very important. So once we have finished with this, right? I have finished with my debugging. I go here and I click Stop All. I want to go back to my old normal setup, so it has basically tore down everything. I can go here on this thing and disable Cloud Debugging. I do want to disable. So what this will do is basically the opposite of what it done when we created when we enabled Cloud Debugging, and it will in essence take this service down to zero tasks. It will bring back the old service to the required amount of tasks. So you will see here it's going to slowly show up. It's going to change the forwarding rules on our network load balancer. So it's going to change basically this. It has already changed. So it has changed it to the Mystical Misfits target group. And in this target group, we're going to slowly be getting those new pieces of new ECS tasks are going to be showing up here as soon as they show up here as well, right? So yeah, that's kind of the way to go back from this thing. So basically, it waits. It's currently disabling Cloud Debugging. It takes a moment or so, you know, depending on your health checks, on the things you set up on the other side of your on your health checks on your load balancers, right? So it depends on a few things, so that's why it takes a while. But again, it's much faster still to debug like this things than, you know, try it out and then doesn't work, and then, you know, potentially trying to connect to a container itself. But yeah, absolutely. One of the things I need to check out here, why did it not push my code change back? Because it should have. But in any case, now once this has been completed, right? So once this thing finishes, and I think has successfully disabled the code debug, what I just do here is I make my changes and I just do all the stuff that I need to do. Get status. Let's see what status. I have modified my controller. I actually did. Get add that. Get commit. Fixes and git push, right? So I have now just made all the changes to my code, and it will go through my pipeline that's basically here, right? So it's gonna take my source, build it into a new container image, and push it to ECR, to the Elastic Container Registry, and it's gonna deploy it to ECS. We're not gonna wait for this because it takes like 5 to 10 minutes. But yeah, in general, that was a quick look at the Cloud Debugger or Cloud Debugging with AWS Toolkit. Now we're expanding AWS Toolkit as much as we can, so we're adding new features. And if again, it's open source, so feel free to maybe submit some pull requests if you have ideas. And also, if you have some ideas or any questions regarding this service or anything like this, I'm super happy to help to have them answered. I have a question from Doug. Is anything other than the application logging being sent to CloudWatch? Ah, yes. So the build push. Okay, so the parts that are being sent to CloudWatch are actually the parts from, besides just container logs and all that stuff, the build logs from our pipeline are being sent to CloudWatch. So if I go to code build here and open up code build, this is currently building my container. You will see all these logs here, which are present on screen right now, but they're being actually pushed into CloudWatch as well. So we can have a look at them as well there. So again, this is some other part of the pipeline, but yes, absolutely. Awesome. Cool. Well, again, as I said, I'm not going to wait for this to finish, but if you have any ideas or topics for some future streams, again, I do these things twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually between 4 and 5 p.m. CET, and I plan to do much more. So once again, thank you all for joining, and I will be posting this video on, well, it's going to be remaining on Twitch. I'm going to post it on YouTube later on, and I'm going to be sharing it through social media, so you can find it later on if you want to follow up. Okay. Well, once again, thank you very much, and I wish you a nice rest of the day and the upcoming weekend. Bye bye.